A guy who pipes up on this joins us now on set. It's our good friend, Newsmax Deputy Health Editor Nick Tate, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide. Insurance for their employees or face a fine. Does it make more economic sense to face that fine?
Sure, it's cheaper. It's $2,000 per employee. That's the fine. To insure an employee costs about $6,500 a year. To insure a family costs $16,000 plus a year. That's one reason why we've already seen about 500 companies drop insurance for part-timers, spouses, and dependents.
And so was this really the purpose of Obamacare, to drive us into a single payer plan like we see in Europe?
We can't really tell whether or not the intent was there, but certainly that's the direction we're going. In fact, some have suggested that over the next 10 to 15 years, as many as 75% of companies that now provide health insurance, which is to about half the country, 150 million Americans, will get out of the business of providing health insurance, and all those folks will go to these Obamacare exchanges, which are a mixed blessing for some.
So how are HR departments being affected by this?
They have enormous amounts of paperwork they have to do, not only to scramble to make sure that they're providing whatever's required or pay the fine, but they have to document what they're doing. And so this year, many of those companies which are struggling to keep those HR departments up and operating because they're having problems are really focusing a lot of their attention on making the paperwork right. Next year, beginning in April of 2016, that's when the companies will pay their fines on whether or not they have insurance. So they're trying to get the paperwork in order right now.
Nick, on this program last week, a possible presidential candidate who is a brain surgeon was here. Dr. Ben Carson said the notion of not repealing Obamacare, a direct quote, that's a bunch of crap, he said. He's intent as a medical professional and possible presidential candidate about repealing this. But this has to wait for a new president to really get done?
As long as President Obama is in the White House, he's made clear that he will veto any repeal law that rips this law out, root and branch, as Mitch McConnell likes to say. So I think what we're likely to see until we get to that point is they will pick apart pieces of this law, including the employer mandate.
Yeah, and including that, what are some other pieces that you think the new Congress will focus on?
Well, right away, they've already promised they're going to vote to change the language of the law so that employers must provide insurance to individuals who work 30 or more hours a week. They will try to change that to make it 40 or more hours a week, which is the Department of Labor traditional definition of full-time work. That's number one. Number two, we're likely to see a repeal of the medical device tax, which is raising only a few $billions but leading to huge costs and confusion. I think we're also going to see major modification of Medicaid laws. And the big question is, what's the Supreme Court going to do with the subsidies aspect of this law? In June, they're going to rule on that. And the subsidies that are going to those individuals who get insurance by these exchanges in 36 or 37 states are not only potentially in question, but the triggering mechanism for the employer mandate is the individual subsidies. If you work for a company that's supposed to provide health benefits and they don't, and you go to get your insurance through an exchange and you get a subsidy, that's what triggers the enforcement. So that decision could not only have an impact on the individual subsidies, but on the employer mandate as well.
Nick Tate, when I hear you talk, they used to be scared about members of Congress taking a look at medicine. But now with lawyers, with the Supreme Court, maybe there'll be some sort of corrective action taken by the court. At any rate, we know we're going to have you back time and again to talk about the politics and the provisions of all of this. Thanks very much, Nick Tate. And hey, be sure to take the National Medicare Survey. Tell Congress what you think of the recent changes to Medicare. There is more ahead here on America's Forum, so please stay with us.